All right, let's dive into the colors here. First up is white. We'll be looking at commons, then uncommons, then rares, and sorting by mana value within those rarity selections. First up, we have Light the Way. It's a single white for an instant. Choose one, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or vehicle, untap it, or return target permanent you control to its owner's hand.
That's a lot of flexibility and
I know.
punch in just a single mana. So the +1/+1 counter on target vehicle or creature on tap it, like, it's narrow, but when you can like eat a creature with that on blocks or on attacks, that's really quite nice. Like, even just attacking your 2 into their 2, you use this and play another 2. You know, the classic thing of one mana tricks are better than 2 mana tricks. That's really nice. Also, the fact that you can ambush something is like always something that's interesting. And then, of course, the return target permanent not only saves things like it normally does with this kind of effect, but picks up your sagas if that's something you would like to do. I actually imagine you're not going to pick up your sagas all that often in this deck.
I don't think so. That's often
Yeah,
the thing that you want to do with sagas, but
yeah.
you're so very incentivized for it to turn into a creature, so it impacts the board.
Yep.
I think this seems just like nightmares. And now your thing's modified too, if you put the counter on that.
No, modified, yeah. That's a good point. I think, you unless a combat trick is a real sicko like Run Amok, you can never really give it too high a grade to it. But it's got all the hallmarks of a good combat trick. It's cheap, it's flexible, there's a lot of good things. I think we can give this one a C.
I think so. Yeah. C for Light the Way.
Nice. Okay. Up next, we've got Lucky Offering. So this is a single mana for a sorcery. Destroy target artifact with mana value 3 or less. You gain 3 life.
No.
Yeah, narrow sideboard card.
There's
Even though there's a lot of
sideboard.
artifacts. Yeah, there's a lot of artifacts, but even still, you most likely do not want to, don't want to main deck it, and there's just better things to play. Essentially, less narrow things. So I'm going to give this a sideboard grade.
Next up is Mothrider Patrol. Single white for a 1/1 Fox Warrior with flying, and has 3 and a white tap target creature.
Ooh, baby. All right, the first of our sweet 1-drops we have to look at here. So, the things to mention with 1-drops in this set. One, obviously, ninjutsu. This isn't in the main ninjutsu colors, but there are some white ninjutsu things, and you're going to have, like, blue-white decks and white-black decks that will have ninjutsu cards. So, 1 mana basic flyers are, really good ninjutsu. Also pretty good with modified, because, just like being able to put counters on a keyword creature is pretty nice, or put an aura on a keyword creature is pretty nice. So all that good stuff essentially, and then it's got that tap ability in the late game, which is pretty nice because this gets in for a few points, and then in the late game it either locks down something that's attacking you to their giant 6/6, or is able to get that blocker out of the way. So no, I don't think this is quite Traveling Minister or Lunarch Veteran, level 1-drop, but it's a pretty solid one, I would say.
Did you mention that it's got types, that it's a warrior?
It does have types. Yes, it is a warrior. That is a great point.
And this is we've now entered my favorite portion of the set review, which is everyone gets to play the drinking game at home of every time Ethan or Alex says it's got good types. And this is the first instance. We promise this will be a responsible game to play, but it's definitely going to come up. And I agree.
Didn't notice that at first, and all the things I was saying about the samurai deck being like all the abilities get pumped onto one thing, like this is the thing you want to pump it onto, right? Just like when this attacks, it gets you get +1/+0 or whatever for all your other creatures, like that's a lot of damage.
Yeah.
I'm actually higher on the
we got him.
Yeah, I'm gonna start this one at B-.
B-?
These cards are just good, Ethan. These cards are just good.
It's a C+.
These cards are just good. How many times
I said it's
teach you this lesson, old man?
Buddy, I love the 1-drops. They're great. This is not pulling. You think this is gonna be the best white common?
I don't know for sure, but it's gonna be top 3. I can guarantee.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. It's not pulling you into white. That's all I'm saying. Don't call me an old man. Like I got you, kid. You're fine. All right, what's next?
All right. So next up, we've got Regent's Authority. 1 instant, 1 white. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If it's an enchantment creature or a legendary creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and it gets +1/+1 instead. So it kind of divides it up. Okay, fine card. Very similar to the other card. We've kind of got 2 combat tricks living in a similar space here. I think probably. I don't know. Do you think it's worse or better than the other one?
Definitely worse, I think.
Yeah, I think so
definitely.
too.
I'm not even sure that the ceiling on this is better than the other one,
Yeah, I mean, putting a counter on. Well, I don't know, because putting a counter on something is pretty nice. but
Yes,
you
but
know.
I think, but that's why I like the way, because you just get to do that on anything.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, I think it's more in the D plus territory.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I have 2 words for everybody still talking about one day Ethan will join us at B-. First of all, I loved Lantern Bearer. I loved that card. I like 1-drops. 2 words for you all. Allenbach Escort. Okay? Allenbach Escort, Alex. All right. I'm going to go like D.
By the way, I just want to, no hard feelings, Ethan. The old man was more of a Simpsons reference. We're very similar in age.
No, you're good. You're good. Visions Authority, I will give a D to.
Yeah, I'm fair. So chat's also pointing out, somebody saying your guys are underrating combat tricks that stick. I don't think underrating is quite the,
Who's underrating? We gave it a C.
I wouldn't go that. Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. I would say that yes, that is a point. Things that combat tricks that leave something around are good, right? Like that's hallmark of a good combat trick. Like an aura that leaves something around, like a trick that's kind of an aura, like flash aura, for sure. I'm just still saying, even with that, makes the card not that amazing. Still fine, but whatever. Yeah. Anyways,
next up is Ancestral Katana.
Yeah,
Leonardo's here. 1 and a white for an equipment. It has an equip cost of 3. Equipped creature gets +2/+1. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, you may pay 1 when you do attach Ancestral Katana to it. Yeah. I mean, 2 mana, equip cost of 1 +2/+1, I'm into. 2 mana, equip cost of 3 +2/+1, I am less into. And given that we haven't gotten to it yet, but Reconfigure exists, it's certainly more expensive than this, but not by much in some instances. I don't think Katana is where you're going to be at a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think also just like fitting in that 2 mana is a little, I mean, it's not the worst, but
yeah.
I don't know. I am also not all that excited about it. It's exactly like you said. Like, we've got Reconfigure cards, which, it's kind of funny. We've been talking about them the whole time. We haven't even gotten to one.
Right.
So I'm sure a lot of people are a little bit in the dark. For those who, maybe a little bit late, but Reconfigure cards are essentially equipment that can also be creatures. So you got that flexibility of, like, it's kind of like when you have a set where you've got big creatures with cycling, right? When you've got a big creature with cycling, the other big creatures get so much worse because you never want to put a big creature that doesn't have cycling in your deck. It's the same thing here, where it's like this equipment that doesn't have Reconfigure, you just don't have room for the creatures that don't have, or the equipment that don't have Reconfigure, because the ones that do are just going to be pretty good. So yeah, I imagine this just doesn't make the cut. I would give it to D.
Yeah, I'm in for D as well.
Although it is kind of cool in the 1 mana flyer, I will give you that.
So is literally anything else that augments a 1/1 flyer.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got a Ganjo Exemplar. This is 1 and a white for a 2/1. It's an enchantment creature. It's a samurai. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, very simple. Gets +1/+1 until end of turn.
So if it's attacks alone, it's a 3/2.
Yep.
And they stack if you get multiples of them, and they're common, so that's not crazy.
Yeah, it's the 2/1.
Hey. It's got types. It's an enchantment.
Got types? It's got 2 types.
Got 2
enchantment
types.
And samurai. Yeah, okay. So maybe it's like enough gluey. Like, the ability does not strike me, like the body and the ability together do not strike me as, like, all that impressive. But yeah, maybe the enchantment creature and samurai together to...
this obviously is going to happen a lot, but like this on turn 2 into this on turn 3 attack with a 4/3, that is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
This on your 1/1 flyer on turn 1 into this on turn 2, you're attacking with a 2/2 on turn 2, 2/2 flyer. Like, I don't know. Turn. This isn't that bad. This is like a C-, I think. I don't think it's crazy good or anything, but there's some stuff to do.
Yeah, I would say C- as well. I think I'm not super excited about it, even if it does have those hashtag types. All right. Next up, we've got Kitsune Ace. This is 1 and a white for a 2/2 Fox Pilot. Whenever a vehicle you control attacks, choose one. That vehicle gains first strike into end of turn, or untap Kitsune Ace. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't get it. What's the joke, Alex? You always tell me about the jokes.
Yeah, I don't think there's that much of a joke here. The joke is you can crew your vehicle, and then you're not really crewing the vehicle because you untap the Kitsune. That's the joke here, right?
But you can't then attack with this. It's not like
no, but it's a blocker, right? That's the whole
those
idea.
Those good 2/2 blockers.
I mean, first strike isn't anything, but isn't nothing. But I just don't think like the 2 mana body or 2 mana 2/2 body is just so medium. So I think this is like a D+.
D+, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that assessment. Oh, the good boy is next. The good boy is next. Spirited Companion. 1 and a white for a 1/1. Enchantment creature doggo. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card.
Yeah. So I think So basically, one of the things that you've brought up on Lords Unlimited is the fact that sometimes, these draw card creatures can kind of vary in how good they are, right? Draw card ETB. I think the cheaper they are, the better they are for the most part, right? Like that's one of the main indicators of, or identifiers of how good this kind of card is. 2 mana is just about as good as you can get for this. It's got types, so A type essentially, an enchantment. I think this card's great. The Elvish Visionary is obviously the comparison. This can contribute to your crew costs, where it's like a free creature that helps you crew stuff. You can modify it. You can sacrifice it. I just think this does so much. I think this card's like a B-.
I agree. I think this is a B-.
Yeah.
This card is phenomenal, and I do think like I wrote about this card for the CFB newsletter a couple weeks ago, and one of the things about the sort of range of these cards is generally what they cost. We haven't seen a 2 mana one since like Dusk Legion Zealot,
and that one was good.
And that was good, and that was draw a card, lose a life, and it did not have types, and that's going to be relevant here too. This
card, vampire, but
sure.
Yeah.
Sorry. But yeah, this card's great.
Yep. All right, up next we've got Wanderer's Intervention. So this is 1 and a white for an instant. Wanderer's Intervention deals 4 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. So we've seen this kind of effect before. And
we've seen it on a rare land.
Yes, we have seen it on a rare land, literally before, as in an hour ago or so, or whatever.
Yeah.
This card's okay. I mean, it's not the removal spell of choice at all for aggressive decks, right?
Right. That's a key. Is that like if there's a white deck that's not interested in being assertive, this gets a lot better. You're much happier. This is effectively then your 2-drop or your 3-drop or whatever, because you're just firing it off on your opponent's attackers.
It also gets better if you've got a lot of flyers, right? Because then you're like worried about the ground creature you're flying over. Like the danger of this card, or the downside of this card in an aggressive deck is they attack, they go, okay, block, then you use this, and it's like, all right, they essentially blunted your attack. Not that good. But if you're flying over, they don't have a chance to block, and you can kill or block their attacker on the crackback, which is, they're going to be trying to race you if you're flying in the air. So it's like, it's funny. It would be good in a ninja deck, I would say, but it's a white card. I guess maybe it's decent in a vehicle deck where you're like attacking with a huge thing, but then you're attacking on the ground still. Some of them fly, but yeah, I would say, temper your expectations as far as removal spells go for this, and I would probably just give it a C.
Yeah, I think a C is a very good baseline for this card.
Yep.
Next up, we have Era of Enlightenment, our first saga here. Well, I guess we had the Mythic Saga, but the first common saga. 1 and a white. First chapter is Scry 2. Second chapter is you gain 2 life. Third chapter, exile, return to the battlefield as Hand of Enlightenment, which is a 2/2 enchantment creature human monk with first strike.
So, a lot of the talk around these cards, and something you were alluding to, and something that I'm kind of curious to see where this lands is, are these too slow, right? Yeah. They seem a bit, you cast it, it doesn't do that much, then you go to chapter 2, it doesn't do that much. This one is certainly on the lower end of impact of the ones that we'll see, but I think it's a good for kind of a case study in answering that question essentially. So I guess slow is a knob they can turn, right? Kind of a design knob where it's like, okay, well, you get this effect quicker, but maybe it's not powerful. You get this effect slower, but it's pretty good, right? So I don't think slow is necessarily a critical indictment on a card, right? It's just kind of, again, a thing that, an attribute that can be adjusted on certain cards. All that's, basically what I'm getting at here is just because these sagas are slow does not necessarily mean they are not good. So what do you get out of your 2 mana here? Well, you get a Scry 2, okay? You gain 2 life. That kind of makes up for not being able to block for a turn, sort of, kind of. And you get a 2/2 first strike. And 2/2 first strike on turn 4 is probably a little more impactful than it sounds. Like, it sounds not so good, right? It sounds like...
Can we compare this to Birth of Meletus? Like, this is not crazy to compare to Birth of Meletus.
I think it's worse than that, but...
I think it's worse than that, too, but I think it's closer than you might think, and that was an uncommon, and that was actually not really... That was not very good in Limited. Like, that's good in Cube and was good in Constructed. That wasn't that good in Limited.
It was fine,
Yeah. But, like, your Scry 2 is very similar to Draw a Card, which that couldn't draw you a card, it only drew you a land. Gain 2 life, both did that, and then this gives you a body. Like, obviously they happen in different orders or whatever. I like, in terms of the cycle of the common ones, I think this is one of the better ones. Now, how good does that mean? Like, one of the better ones of 5, That's still, I don't know what that means in terms of how good they are. But this is one that I'm a little bit more optimistic about.
I think the 2/2 first strike on turn 4 is more impactful than people might give it credit for, and just like reading the card, because that bricks all 2 toughness creatures on blocks, and attacks reasonably well with any amount of, I mean, sometimes just by itself, but with any amount of enhancements or tricks or whatever it is, right? So that don't discount a first strike or 2/2 first strike on turn 4, and then you get the other stuff. So like, again, we're gonna see kind of variance on how this plays out, but I think this, like you said, this is one of the better ones. And of course, we mentioned this a little bit before, this does trigger enchantment matters stuff, right? So yeah, I'm gonna start, honestly, I'm gonna start at C+ on this.
I am too. I'm gonna start at C+ with Era of Enlightenment.
Yep, sweet. All right. Next up, we've got Dragonfly Suit. This is kind of funny. It's a 2 and a white for a vehicle, so it's a colored vehicle. It's a 2/3 flyer, or sorry, 3/2 flyer. And it has crew 1. So 3 mana, 3/2 flyer, crew 1. That's not the best rate, honestly. Like, so
I don't know.
How much, like, okay, so a 3 mana, 3/2 flyer at common, like, that's a good rate.
That's good.
Yeah, it's above rate for sure.
Yeah.
But you have to, like, you're investing a 1-drop or, an expendable creature into this to be able to crew it. And that's not nothing. My gut says this one's not all that good, but
yeah, like, it's only good. I think when you think about the ceiling of this card, of like, play it on turn 3, and now whatever, maybe your 1-drop did some things, and then whatever. Yeah. But this isn't doing anything really until turn 4. You're attacking with it, and so that's a turn ahead of schedule, right? We usually feel fine about a 4-mana 3/2 flyer, but we really only feel fine about a 4-mana 3/2 flyer these days. It's not like Snapping Drake is no longer a card that is good in limited sets that much.
I would say, yeah, maybe I came into this card like making it sound like I don't like this card at all, but I just want to kind of preface that as like, yeah, I think this card is okay. It's merely just like, you could play. I think it's a card you're not going to want to put in your deck very often, I guess, is the way I would maybe put it.
That's sort of what I think. Yeah. I think it's like a C-.
C- is about where I would
I think so. All right. Next up, we've got Golden Tailed Disciple. It's 2 and a white for an enchantment creature, Fox Monk, and it's got lifelink. Hello.
So it's a kind of like a Kylie Ancestor, except trades in Disturb for being an enchantment creature, essentially. Yeah, I mean, this, lifelink, great. Lifelink is a ability that I think now just finally people are kind of like understanding after set for set that it's a very, very powerful ability. It doesn't take, lifelink really changes the tenor of combat and what your opponent can attack with, because you can't ever race a lifelinker. It just doesn't work. Any amount of enhancements on this thing are pretty nice. Any, equipment on it. So yeah, I mean, all that's to say, I don't think this card is like fantastic, but I think it's probably a solid C.
I think so too. Yeah, C seems good to me.
All right, next up we've got Imperial Subduer. This is 2 and a white for a 3/2 human samurai. Types, take a shot. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, tap target creature you don't control.
I have literally no idea how to evaluate this card.
When I first saw it, I was like, oh, this is not very good. But I hadn't seen the full picture of what the whole samurai warrior thing was doing. I think this is like a pretty good piece of the puzzle in that deck, where if that's the thing you're doing often, attacking with one thing, like tapping, like turning that one thing into a Territory Hamler Skull or whatever equivalent you want, a thing that attacks and taps, is pretty darn good. Now, am I gonna give this a B+ or anything? Of course not. But I think it's, again, probably a solid C for that kind of deck.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I think about, okay, you curve the 2-mana 2/1 into this, and now and then you attack with your 2/1. Now it's a 3/2, and you get to tap their blocker. And the presence of this, as we talked about on last week's episode, the presence of this on the battlefield does sort of make your opponent have to think about, am I just full on racing you, or am I not attacking at all? Because if I leave back a blocker, that's not good enough. Then I leave back 2 blockers. What happens if you have a removal spell? Like, this card does have some pretty good ceiling scenarios, but also the floor is a 3-mana 3/2, which is not good.
Yeah, so I agree with that for sure. And the thing is, again, I've mentioned this a little bit, but I want to trace on again. This isn't really like a Voltron deck. You're not suiting up as in like investing cards into a single creature. It's Voltron-y in the sense that you'll have one big creature at some point every turn, but the cost for setting that up is just playing your curve of creatures. You're not actually investing much, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would give this a C. And this is all really dependent on if this ends up being a flop, right? There could certainly be factors in the format, just like there were with training, where it's just like, this doesn't work the way you want it to, and this isn't what you should be doing, right? But if it's like, this is all, if it works out, if the things are put in place, they work the way the designers wanted them to, I think that card is going to be pretty good.
Yeah, that's fair. It's in a format with vehicles, that effect does get a little dicier. I hadn't thought about that in terms of like,
true.
You tap the thing, and then in response, that thing cruises a vehicle that can block. So that's a knock against that for sure. Next up, we have Intercessors Arrest. It's 2 and a white for an aura enchant permanent. Enchanted permanent can't attack, block, or crew vehicles. Its activated abilities can't be activated unless they're mana abilities.
Okay, so
this is a common. Wow.
Yeah, this so it's better arrest essentially.
Yeah.
Like this is, I guess this is very similar to the Bound in Gold, was it called, from Kaldheim?
Right.
And that was a good version of pacifism, right? There doesn't seem to be any. Not true. I was gonna say there's not that many sacrifice effects, but there is the artifact sacrifice stuff, and the artifact sacrifice stuff bleeds into some creature sacrifice stuff. So there is a bit of risk there. My gut says that this one's good enough to start it at pretty decent as far as, pacifism level cards go. Like, I think I want to start this as like a C+.
Yeah, I think I'm going B- on this.
Yeah,
I like this card a lot. I don't know. I feel like I swung low on pacifisms for a while, because actual factual pacifism is not a good card, especially in a Korea where like the two best decks, like cycling and sacrifice, or and cycling and humans or whatever, like, or mutate, like it's just like the 3 best decks it just was bad against. But I think they've really turned it up a notch, and Arrest looks good to me.
Yeah, we'll see. It's interesting. Usually the white ones end up being decent, and the blue ones end up being not so good.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we got Repel the Vials. This is 4 mana, 3 and a white for an instant. Choose one. Exile target creature with power 4 or greater, or exile target enchantment. So a little best of one Bob special over here. A little modality on your...
Yeah, except you don't want either. Like at least with... I don't know. I just don't think... I think in this format in particular, with the equipment existing, or the reconfigure stuff existing, exile thing with power 4 or greater may not be actually... that might just be answering... That's a stopgap. Like, it's answering a 2/2 that's suited up with something, and then they just go, fine, move that to something else,
So the argument for these cards, so chat's bringing up, well, there's so many enchantments in this that you could exile. It's not often that the concern is there isn't a target. It's the fact that the thing you want to kill isn't always an enchantment. Like, that's what it really comes down to. Yeah. Or it isn't always a 4-power creature, right? It's a flyer, or it's a non-enchantment rare that you need to kill, right? It's not the numbers necessarily. It comes down to the actual specifics in games. That's why these cards aren't so good.
Yeah.
Obviously, it gets better if there are more enchantments, so that it's not a dead card. But this goes back to ask more of your cards, right? Like, you could play this card. I think you could put it in your deck, but I'm not looking to, essentially. So I would just start this as a D.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give it a straight up sideboard card. Like,
yeah,
I'm not main decking this card ever. I don't think. Seven Tail Mentor is 3 and a white for a 2/3 Fox Samurai. When it enters the battlefield or dies, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or vehicle you control.
Well, so it's a 3/4 by itself, which is the fail case here.
Yep.
And then I guess the idea is, like, you put it on a vehicle, and then this can crew a vehicle. I think this looks really junky. It's a samurai. I think it looks pretty junky, though.
Yeah, I think this is like C-, D+ territory to me. Like, this could be slightly better than I'm giving it credit for. Yeah, in terms of like the threshold for these for like 4 mana value plus commons is like they need to be able to push damage, I think, a lot of the time, and this can do that, right? This gives a counter on something that can now attack this turn, or gives a counter on your vehicle, and then you can crew it and attack with it. Like, it's not bad. So this might be better than I'm giving it credit for. So I'll start C- on the mentor.
I think I would go, I would just start at a D+ actually. But...
Okay.
All right, Befriending the Moths. 4 mana, 3 and a white for a saga. First two chapters are the same. They're both target creature you control gets +1/+1 against flying until end of turn. And the backside is a 2/4 flyer. A little bit of a callback to Kabuto Moth. You ever play with that card, Ethan?
I did not, no.
Oh, it's a absolute nightmare. Anyway, that's not this card. But this card is again in that weird space of like kind of tricky to evaluate. Like how good is giving something flying for 2 turns in a row and then turning into a 2/4 flyer?
I mean, it's not obviously if you're behind, the first 2 chapters do nothing.
Yeah, sure.
But otherwise, and especially with like the Samurai Warrior attack alone thing, this is good.
It's a lot of damage.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pushing damage, right? Yeah, I think that's the thing that people sometimes, a lot of people look into this card and they're like, oh man, like it's just like it doesn't impact the board all that often. But it does, right? It does impact the board, right? It gives you a really good attack and makes your opponent puts them under the gun. And yes, it doesn't like immediately put a blocker down, which, is a knock against it, but that's not the end all be all, right? The fact that this offers you some upside of really doing a good job of what it does, of what it offers, is definitely a plus for the card. And turning to a 2/4 flyer is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think if you're not actively like, I think honestly, when I look at this card, I really want to make sure those first 2 chapters are doing something because yes, a 2/4 flyer is good, but I can't spend 4 mana suspend for a 2/4 flyer, It's just
it's not a defensive card if you're looking at it like, I want to put this in my kind of mid-range deck.
No,
it's probably not going to perform, but in the place it's good. It's going to be awesome. And like here's an interesting comparison. It's obviously it's not the same thing, but Dormant Grove-ish, where it's like comes down. Yes, you're not spending turn 4 on anything, but you're putting a lot of pressure on, and then it turns into something, right?
It was rare that Dormant Grove was not enabling attacks.
Right, exactly. That's the key. And this is going to enable attacks even better, I think. It loses being able to block well, right? Being able to put it on your large creature and blocking well. But
how high do you want to grade this thing?
I would give this a C+.
C+, yeah.
Again, it's also got the enchantment stuff going on. So,
sure.
Put it on a lifelinker, you even make up for it not being able to block, right? So
yeah. Next up, we've got Sunblade Samurai, 4 and a white for a 4/4 enchantment creature human samurai with vigilance. And as channel 2, discard it. Search your library for a basic plains card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. You gain 2 life.
Ooh, this is spicy.
I like this
cool.
card a lot. So it's a split card. So it's got plain cycling. You also gain a little bit of life. There's not like life gain synergies, but that's like a little environmental sciences life gain boost for you.
Yeah.
So great when you want to do that, and then gets an enchantment in your graveyard, which is relevant sometimes too. Then this is also just like fine when you want to play it on curve as a 5 mana 4/4 vigilance, and it being vigilant and a samurai means that if this is attacking alone, you can sort of like get the benefits of attacking alone plus being able to block with it as well. I don't know. This is the first like 5-drop, but I like this guy.
So it's got modality, which is a definite plus. I think the thing is like, so okay, you're not going to cycle it when you've got a bunch of lands and you can just cast this,
right?
But and so when you just cast this, it's not the most impactful thing, but that's it's not a huge knock against the card because when you don't have lands, being able to cycle this to gain some life, get plains is nice. I guess my thought is that like when you're in those games, when you've already got those lands, you're like, this is just a 5 mana 4/4. It's not that it's
but like then but also like we could talk about cards like this let you like you put a card like this in your deck, you can play 16 lands.
Sure. Yeah.
Very often. So like
sometimes.
It does have some deck building considerations in that respect. I don't know. Yeah. Again, it sounds like I'm higher on modality than you are. Like, yeah, sure. Either half of this card isn't a great card, but you get to choose. And choices unlimited are, I think, choices unlimited, like we talked about already with like, you just sometimes lose because you see 3 mountains and 4 black cards in your opening hand when you did all the right things. Like, I think the modality here is quite strong. I would start at C+ on Sunblade Samurai.
Also, vigilance on a large creature is nice. Like that's also a nice little thing. So yeah, I would give this a C, but same ballpark. All right, next up we got Imperial Oath. This is 6 mana for a sorcery. Create 3 2/2 white samurai creature tokens with vigilance. Scry 3. Really interesting.
So I guess the thing here is now you have 3 samurais that can each attack alone.
Yep.
Or you're just getting 6 power and toughness for 6 mana, and you get to scry 3, which is like, I mean, kind of like drawing a card, but like, what the heck? Like, is this really what you want to do for 6 mana?
I think I'm into this. Yeah, 3 bodies. Yeah, I think this is really good, actually. Like, 3 bodies that, get all those samurai bonuses, and, like, I think just a general underrated concept is just multiple bodies off of one card. I mean, not that it's like people are like completely underrating that, but I think it gets downplayed a little bit how good that is. And this is 3 bodies. If you need to block, it's 3 blockers. If you want to get those bonuses, it's great. It doesn't have the 6-drop problem of you cast it, your opponent removes it, you're down a lot of tempo. It stabilizes you super well, and it digs you to more action. Like, I don't think you're going to play this in your most aggressive of aggressive decks, but my gut feeling is that the Samurai decks, again, aren't like the most aggressive of aggressive decks. They like attack for the early game, and then they set up for their mid game, essentially. And I think this is a perfectly fine 6-drop to play. Like, you know me, I'm not high on 6.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, what's the? You sound. This feels like a classic. Like, I'm really into this card. I think it's a C. Like.
That's what I'm gonna say. No, that is what I'm gonna say. This is my once per set review, Alex Cardwar. Talk it way up and don't give it a great grade.
I want to come back to this, or I want to check in on your stream like week 2 and see how many times you've actually cast this.
For sure. Yeah. No. Totally. It could be the fact that it could be just end up being like, yeah, there's too many 1-mana 1/1 flyers running around. We're just like, you can't afford to cast a 6-mana card. But if you can afford to cast a 6-mana card, I think this is a good one. I would give it a C.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna start lower it, but like you're saying you like it. We got Jason and NCAA in chat saying they really like it, and they think it's the 2nd best white common. Whew.
yeah. I don't know. Like, it's a hot take, but it could end up being. I could see it being right. Is I guess the way I would put it.
Interesting. All right. I'm gonna go skeptical on this.
Yeah, fair.
I'm gonna go deep. I'm going D+. I think you're just not putting 6-mana cards in your white decks a lot of the time. That's what I think. But
that's totally fair.
Could be wrong. You're on C, you said?
Yep, I'll give it a C.
Yeah. All right. First uncommon is Hotshot Mechanic. Pop quiz. Single white for a 2/1 artifact creature fox pilot, and it crews vehicles as though its power were 2 greater.
That's sweet. Yeah, little Savannah line action, and then cruise vehicles. Yeah, this is super solid.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how often, like, I don't think having this card is going to make me want crew 3 or crew 4 cards more.
No.
So I don't think you want to get tripped up with that.
No, for sure.
But I think that, I think this is a good card. I mean, 1-mana 2/1's just good, and then the upside is there for sure.
1-mana 2/1 is very much kind of like the stat line of like, the 4-mana 4/4 and the Windrake, right? Where it's like, I don't think you'd want to play that on its own, but with a little bit of tweaking, it gets pretty good, So I think this card is pretty darn solid. I'd probably give it a C+.
Yeah, I think C+ sounds good for Hotshot Mechanic for sure.
Next up, we've got Banishing Slash. This is a white for a sorcery. Destroy up to 1 target artifact, enchantment, or tapped creature. Then, if you control an artifact and an enchantment, control or create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with vigilance.
I mean, I already talked about this card last week, so I'll send it over to you.
So yeah, so just to, not to retread too much of your ground that you talked about, but the ceiling on this card is very high, right? It's just like it's a 2-mana card that kills something and makes it 2/2. That sounds absurd, right? But there's a lot of hoops, both in actual explicit hoops to jump through here, and then gameplay hoops to jump through here. The explicit hoops, of course, are that you have to have an artifact and enchantment, which we've talked about a little bit. But also the gameplay hoops are you have to take a hit from a creature or tap it some other way. White is not nothing, right? That's going to come up sometimes. So it's like a really good tempo hit or tempo play when it comes up. So you can, when you cast this and cast something else. I just think like you shouldn't look at this card as just like Flame Tongue Kavu or Ravenous Chupacabra or whatever. Like it's definitely a lot more finicky than that.
Yeah, no, it's not, but it's cheap. And the fact that there are going to be some artifact creatures or enchantment creatures that you can kill with this, right?
Yeah.
That don't have to be tapped because they are artifacts or
yes,
enchantments.
that is true.
So there's that. I just think that like the floor of this card isn't that, like, I think you can look at this and be like, oh man, it's white and it's sorcery speed and they gotta hit you with the creature first. Like, yeah, but the floor of that card is still pretty good, and then everything else is like every other part of this is just better than that.
I think this card's good. Yeah,
I don't
want to talk it down too much. I was more coming at this than said like if anybody's looking at this card, Busto. I don't think it's Busto, but I think it's good. I think like you said, like just be able to straight up kill an enchantment. Like kill an enchantment creature, right? Kill a vehicle. That's quite good. I'd probably still just give this a B-.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like a better B- than the enchantment based common removal.
Yeah.
But that's how I'm coming at it for now. But I could see that swapping. I could see that being better, or I could see this being much better. Who knows? But I think fair. B- seems good here. Next up is Selfless Samurai. This is 1 and a white for a 2/2 Fox Samurai. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, it gains lifelink until end of turn, which is cheating in limited. And you can sacrifice it to have another target creature you control gain indestructible until end of turn.
We saw a card like this last at Oldenbach. I scored. That card was terrible. This card's also probably terrible. No, this card's amazing.
This card's insane.
This card's great. So yeah, we got the long line of things that your samurais get when they attack alone. Lifelink's a pretty darn good one. Like that's just, as far as racing goes, you're making your giant thing, well, even more giant, or you're making your attack bigger through means of its samurai buffs or anything else. That plus lifelink, great. Right, a lot of these samurai things give keyword abilities. This is one of them, and giving a keyword ability to something that is giving a stat boost is also very, very good. So that's just great on baseline. This just being that 2/2 lifelink on attacks, like we were talking about before, also great. And then it plays even further well in that kind of deck, or just in any deck, honestly, because it's that sacrifice to get something indestructible. Fantastic. I think this card is phenomenal. I would give this a B+.
I'm in for B+. I was just gonna give it a B, but your enthusiasm alone sold me on B+.
Nice. Yeah, I love that card. All right, next up we've got Michiko's Reign of Truth. So this is 2 mana, 1 and a white for a saga. The first 2 chapters are the same. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each artifact or enchantment you control. And then the backside is a portrait of Michiko. It's a 0/0 enchantment creature, and it says it gets +1/+1 for each artifact or enchantment you control. Or enchantment, sorry.
Right, so at the base it's 1, right? Yeah. At the base with just this saga, you'll be giving +1, and it'll be a 1/1 itself. Yeah. And then it just grows beyond that. I don't know. I mean, I guess this is good. Is this better than the flying one? I'm a little more excited about the +1/+1 in evasion than I am about just like raw stats, but I guess I could just see there could just be board states where this is just like +4/+4.
Yep.
Or whatever,
so if you have a deck that this is good in, this is better than the flying one. Yes. Just like a 2 mana giant creature that gives a big stat boost to your attacker. Yeah. That's really, really powerful. The deck building restrictions of this are a bit tighter because you're just not going to have decks with a bunch of artifacts and enchantments, but obviously keep an eye out for times you have like 7 or more than 7, but probably like 10 or 11 plus maybe things that make multiple artifacts. That's really good. So like I would compare this to like All That Glitters, which ended up being at the end of Eldraine like a pretty decent card in the right deck, right? I think this card is better than that. Number one, because I think there's more support for this card in the set. There's just more enchantments and artifacts, and I think just the kind of turning into a creature is a big upside. So yeah, I think this is certainly more of a synergy card. I think it's our maybe first synergy grade, but I would give this one like a synergy B. Yeah, I'm in for synergy B. That seems fair. Yeah. It's just so much for 2 mana if you've got the deck for it. Yeah. Next up, a ninjutsu card in white. Blade Blizzard Kitsune. 2 and a white for a 2/2 Fox Ninja with double strike, and it has ninjutsu for 3 and a white. Yeah, so somebody asked me on my stream yesterday, I was going through some of these cards. Was this before or after you decided to revise your AFR tier list? yeah, that was an important. Did you? I meant to ask you. Did you need to go and do that, like in the middle here, just because it's? Look, I serve the people, Ethan, and somebody wanted an AFR tier list update. Anyways, we're looking at this card last night, and somebody said, "Why is this ninjutsu more expensive than the cost just to cast it?" And that's a valid question because a lot of the ninjutsu costs are cheaper, right? I think the answer is a double striker, right? A 2D double striker. Like double strike is a powerful ability that is thwarted by a certain mechanic called blocking, right? When your opponent can block your double striker, well, it's not that good. It's not that bad, right? They can chump with their 1/1 or whatever. But when you ninjutsu it in, that kind of takes that away, and it's a big chunk of damage, right? So that's the reason here, especially if there's anything pumping this, right? Mm-hmm. So like. It's weird because it's a white ninja. It doesn't play in the same space as a lot of these cards, but I think this card's pretty good. Just like either playing a 2/2 double striker on 3, which is just a fine baseline. That's good, right? It's really scary if you can augment it anyway, and being able to like ninjutsu it in for like last 4 points, or like going like There's definitely going to be times where think about this. For 5 mana, you go unblock creature, pick something up, put this in, +2/+2 trick. That's 8 damage out of nowhere, right? That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the baseline on this card is good, and the ceiling on the card is also pretty good, even though it is kind of in a weird space.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's again, there's modality here, and even if the modality split is something like 90%, 10%, where most of the time you're just casting this as a 3-mana 2/2 double strike, but then the flexibility of, I can craft this game where, as Alex is saying, this idea of sneak this in, plop a counter on it, now it's a 6, now it's dealing them 6, and I have a blocker, whatever. I think, and as you're saying, a 3-mana 2/2 double strike, that's just a really good rate.
Also, I wanted to wait until we got to more ninjutsu cards to touch on this, and I'm going to, but it's interesting because there's a timing thing that's weird that you can actually, for whatever reason, if you wanted to, you could double strike, after first strike damage goes through, put this back in your hand and ninjutsu something in, so you get the first strike damage, plus you can put a ninjutsu creature in for, whatever ability you want. So
you could pick this up and you could ninjutsu something in place of this, and then ninjutsu this in place of something else.
Very strange, yes. It's not going to come up a lot, but there are applications that you can
Seems like it'll come up all the time when you have 8 free mana and 2 unblocked creatures and just want to spin some wheels.
Yeah.
I think this is what is it? C+?
Yeah, I'll give it a C+, I think.
Yeah. Okay,
sweet.
All these epic names of cards, and then Born to Drive.
Born to Drive. It's my favorite 80s song. So this is 2 and a white for a enchantment aura. Enchants a artifact or a creature. As long as the enchanted permanent is a creature, it gets +1/+1 for each creature or vehicle you control. Okay. And then channel, 3 mana, 2 and a white. Discard this card, create 2 of the 1/1 pilot tokens with, they can crew as if they were 2 greater in power. So crews 3 power things.
Man, I like that.
It's a lot of damage.
This aura threatens to be really strong. Just the modality here is just so good. I really like this. I think I'm happy with both of the. Well, I guess I'm not really generally happy with the aura portion of this, but the fact that sometimes I will want that is nice. And I think, obviously this will be more of a secret blue-white gold card, because that's the deck where you'll want the pilots.
This reminds me a lot of the red-white X-Rare, where the mode of Fireball is, Lava Axe is kind of, you have a buyout of not being Lava Axe, right? Yeah. So you put this on a flyer, this. You're
talking about Light Up the Night or whatever?
No. Oh. I'm talking about the red-white X. The Mega Bunch of Samurais that we saw earlier, yes. Right? So you could just put this on a cheap flyer and just dome them for 6 or whatever, or more, right? That's a lot of damage. And then when you don't have a particular board set that's good for it, the creatures are a good bio clause.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm into this card. I know, not like insanely so, but I would give this a C.
Yeah, I'm gonna go C+.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm just gonna consistently grade these channel cards at least half a marking higher than you. Next we have Imperial Recovery Unit, 2 and a white for a 3/4 vehicle with crew 2, and whenever it attacks, you return target creature or vehicle card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand.
Interesting. So it's okay on the vanilla test, the vehicle vanilla test. 3 mana, 3/4 crew 2. Beefy-ish, and then you can buy back 2-drops sometimes, or 1-drops.
Yeah, it's great with Spirited Companion.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not crazy about this card.
No, I'm not crazy about it either. Maybe these vehicles end up being a little bit better than we think, because maybe we're not seeing the whole picture of we've talked about the cards, but just actually how they, we get the full scope of how they play when we actually see them on the battlefield, just how the vehicle and pilot stuff all plays together. But I'm not super excited about this. I think this is probably around a C for me.
Yeah, I think I'm in C- territory here. I don't know. Maybe I'm underrating it, and probably I'll go C. C is fine, because okay. I think the existence of Spirited Companion makes me feel like this is at least a C.
All right, next up we've got Norika Yamazaki, the Poet. So this is 3 mana, 2 and a white for a 3/2 legendary creature, human samurai. It's got vigilance. Whenever a samurai or warrior you attack or your control attacks alone, you may cast target enchantment card from your graveyard this turn. A little bit of interesting, twist on the combat focused triggers we've seen.
I'm into that, especially
Yeah.
because maybe I really like that 2-mana 2/1 Samurai,
Yeah.
like the attacks alone, because that was an enchantment creature. This I kind of like this.
So one thing I'm noticing about these samurai cards that I'm sure a lot of people have noticed too, but I think it's worth calling out, is that a lot of these abilities are really interesting because, like, the one that you attacks, it taps something down. Often your opponent goes, I have to block that thing to get that ability off the board. But if you just want this effect, it's not like you have to send Norika in. You can send any samurai in. You've still got this value engine going. They can't just go, okay, block, you don't get it again next turn. No, you can do it again next turn.
Well,
This
this also doesn't have the, like, I think, is it Grolnok, the frog problem?
Yeah,
where it's like,
exactly,
you
that's
attack with
exactly it.
Grolnok, and you're like, cool, I get potentially to cast these cards. Nope, it's dead. Like,
that's what I'm getting at here.
Yeah, Norika just says you get to cast that no matter what. So even if you attack
Right.
with just Norika, yeah, I like this.
Yeah, this is cool. This is definitely a card, and Vigilance also plays well with all the samurai stuff too. Worth noting. So yeah, what do you want to give this?
I think I would give this a B minus.
Okay, I think I would go a little bit lower than that, probably a C plus.
Yeah.
But I do like the card.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Touch the Spirit Realm is next. It's 2 and a white for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target artifact or creature until Touch the Spirit Realm leaves the battlefield, so like a sort of Oblivion Ring variant. But it also has Channel. For 1 and a white, you can discard it. Exile target artifact or creature. Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step.
Such a cool card.
Such a cool card. Such a good card.
Yeah, it is very, very good.
You're gonna cast it straight up most of the time in limited, but again, that 10% of the time where it comes up, where it's whatever, you haven't had a chance to slot it in along your curve, you want to save something, or you want, I don't know, why would there ever be a chance where, I don't know, maybe you want to flicker your opponent's thing because it has an aura on it.
Yeah, for sure.
They're just gonna go and kill you. They've ninjutsu'd something in, and you're like, I can't deal with that. I want to, just like having this flexibility is pretty darn good. Even if you're just gonna cast it straight up most of the time.
This is cool. So being an enchantment is a little bit of a double-edged sword with this kind of card because it is good for your enchantment matter stuff, but of course it can get blown up by more stuff. And in this set, there's a little bit more enchantment removal than we normally see, and I imagine people are going to be playing a little bit more enchantment removal main deck than we normally see. I think that balances out on average, though. Like, being an enchantment's an upside as much as it is a downside. And then the channel mode's great. You can do cool stuff or save your creature. What do you want to give this? A B?
Yeah, I think a B.
Yeah, B is super, super solid card. Great. Touch the Spirit Realm. Great.
All right. Next up, what do we got?
The Fall of Lord Konda. This is 2 and a white for another saga. First chapter. Exile target creature opponent controls with mana value 4 or greater. Chapter 2. Each player gains control of all permanents they own. Chapter 3. It flips into a 1/3 defender that draws a card when it dies.
Weird.
Yeah, very strange card.
What a weird card.
Okay, so the first chapter is pretty good, right? Just 3 mana exile, one of their, their big creatures. Not always gonna have a target right away, but it'll nab something pretty good. The second chapter is great if you're playing against a mind control EDH deck where they're just stealing all your stuff. But in limited, I don't think it's gonna come up very often. There's like a few cards that do steal things at rare, but send us the screenshot when that happens or whatever. Chapter 3 turns into an okay blocker that dies and draws you a card. I like this. It's pretty good.
I'm kind of wild. This is wild to me. The people in chat who are saying like this is an F, this is a D minus. Like,
wow.
Have you ever faced? When was the last time you didn't face something that needed to be dealt with that cost 4 or more in limited?
Oh. Yeah, we've got people running. Yeah, there's the range of people saying this is an F, this is a B. So this is definitely a tricky one to evaluate. My gut says this is quite good.
I think it's just weird in that it like decelerates. Like the best part of this card is chapter 1, whereas the other sagas we're seeing are like something. Here's your good creature. I think this is good.
There's also the fact that you can sacrifice the backside to like the things that sacrifice in black that we're gonna see. Yeah, I don't know. I'm up on this card.
Yeah, me too. I think I'm gonna start on B minus here.
I will join you there. Yeah.
Like I think I would take Touch the Spirit Realm over this, but so far I think that's probably it.
I can see that being flipped though. I
For
see,
sure. Yeah.
All right, Ethan.
What's up?
We get to our first shrine here.
Our first shrine. Go Shintai of Shared Purpose. This is 3 and a white for a 1/3 legendary enchantment creature shrine. That is not a creature type. Don't get it twisted, folks. It has vigilance, and at the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1 if you do create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token for each shrine you control.
Okay. So.
Okay.
You know what, Ethan, you have the honor. You start.
I love me a good limited build around. I think the shrines they're worse as creatures, honestly, because they're more easily disrupted. Certainly this, of course, is very understated, so it might as well just not be a creature at all. Of the shrines, this is not one that particularly excites me, though I will be doing the shrine thing. So yeah. I'm going to be drafting shrines a lot. I may do a full shrines week again, like I did for what was it, M21, I guess. But this one is not that exciting to me, I think.
Yeah, so let's do the little, if you have 2. Let's just say you're doing a 2-color deck and you happen to pick up 2 shrines, or you have 3 shrines in your deck, right? And you got one of these and 2 of the, I don't know, red one or whatever, or black one, whatever it is. If you've got 2 and you got this going, creating 2 1/1s a turn, that's pretty impressive, right? Plus whatever the other shrine is doing.
Right, but so the problem with that scenario, so let's say you've got whatever, I don't know what the red one does, but I know that it's a 2/2 first strike for 3 mana. So let's say you play that into this. You've done, I mean, the 3 mana 2/2 first strike is fine, but like, are you really trying to engage these in combat? And so like, you have to sort of think about how they're going to play out in terms of like, I'm going to play this, but I'd like it not to get, hit by removal. And I'd also like to not have to tussle with this in combat because I want to get to the point which is on turn 5 or 6 or whatever, where you're actually going to be able to free up the mana to pump into these. I don't know. They're hard to evaluate. This feels a little slow to me.
Yes, I think so too. They were able to push the abilities on these ones a little more than you're saying being a creature is a downside. And I agree overall, but the abilities are pushed a little bit more because they've added a cost and, they're more vulnerable. So what you get is, you get rewarded a little bit more. So I don't know. I was just going through all the combinations earlier and being like, oh, if you have this one and this one, like that's pretty good. With the caveat of everything you just said. But as far as, we were talking about Okagachi, right, the 5-color card, I think going for this, if you're building around it, I think the payoff is there, essentially.
I think so. I have no idea how to give this a grade. I think certainly has to be a build around, but build around question mark for me.
Yeah, I will say the art on all of these shrines, absolutely stunning. Like, some of the best Magic art I've ever seen, honestly. Like, these are fantastic. So that gives it a full grade or whatever.
You're telling me there's art on these cards?
Yeah, I'm telling you that, Ethan. You're gonna be looking at them a lot. So.
We forgot to read the flavor text on all these cards too.
Oh crap! All right, let's go. I mean, we've got like 120 cards we didn't do that for, so we should probably restart this. Anyways, yeah, I think that I'm gonna just give this I'll come back to this. All the things we talked about are interesting, and I think point people in the right direction. Give it a try, see what it's like, and we'll reconvene in a week or so.
Yeah.
All right, next up we've got When We Were Young. Love this card. This is 3 and a white for a 4-mana instant. Up to 2 target creatures each get +2/+2 until end of turn. If you control an artifact and an enchantment, those creatures also gain lifelink until end of turn. Again, I was talking about the art and the name more than the card. I think the card is fine, but let's talk about the actual card text, as we are a strategy set review podcast. +2/+2 for 4 mana. For on 2 creatures is good. It certainly has its moments, but we've kind of seen this trend of like all these cards, right? Like 3 or 4 mana cards that give +2/+2 or +whatever to 2 creatures. They have high ceilings and like pretty medium floors, right?
Yeah. It's especially a little weird in a color that has this attack alone theme.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
I don't know. I and 4 mana for this. I keep thinking of Synchronized Strike, which obviously was many years ago, but was in Amonkhet. They gave +2/+2 to 2 things for 3 mana, but it also untapped those things in a format where
untap matters.
I can't remember the Exert was the mechanic that kept the thing tapped.
Yeah.
So that was ridiculous there. I don't know how good this is a full mana more thing that, I'm just wondering, would I just rather have the +1/+1 Flying Saga to push my damage than this? And I feel like
I think so.
my initial thought is yes.
The question really is, does lifelink make up for the clunkiness of this? And if you always got lifelink,
yes,
I think maybe
huge.
But artifact and enchantment means, like, I don't have a rough percentage of how likely that's going to happen, but I don't think I want to give this card a high grade. I would start this as a D.
I'm in for D as well. I think this card is not that good.
Good.
Last up, we have Sky Blessed Samurai, 6 and white for a 4/4 enchantment creature human samurai. Costs 1 less to cast for each enchantment you control, and it has flying. So 7 mana for a 4/4 flyer, but 1 less to cast for each enchantment you control.
Affinity for enchantments, interesting. So I imagine, this is very similar to that giant 8/8 hexproof creature we saw.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine this is going to cost 5 a lot of the time in decks that you would put it in. And a 5 mana 4/4 flyer enchantment creature samurai types.
Two types.
Yeah, 2 types. That's good, but it's not amazing, right? Like the not Windrake, Air Elementals kind of fall into that kind of like, you like classically good limited card that I think has fallen off a little bit over the years as like Busto awesome to like, really pretty decent, So if you can get this for 4, that's very good. If you can get this for 5, I'm pretty happy about it. 6, that's when you're getting into like, not that into a territory. So this is going to be very deck dependent. If you've got a lot of enchantments, I think this card's going to be pretty good, because sometimes you can even double spell with it where you're like really late in the game, but you've maybe drawn a few cards somehow, and you go, okay, play this for 3 mana because I've got 4 enchantments, play something else, So it's really going to be deck dependent, honestly. So I would probably just give this like a synergy C+.
That's exactly the grade that I gave it. Yep.
Nice,
Synergy C+.
In
Agreed.
tune.
Moving on to the rares. March of Otherworldly Light is X and a white for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may exile any number of white cards from your hand. The spell costs 2 less to cast for each card exiled this way. You can exile target artifact, creature, or enchantment with mana value X or less.
Okay, so this is part of a cycle of there's one rare for each color where it asks you to exile cards from your hand to make the spell cost cheaper. They're all X spells. And this one is a pretty good one, right? Just like pretty flexible removal spell. You're always going to be trading down on mana unless you discard a card, which is not something you're going to want to do almost ever unless you're in really dire straits. But the flexible removal of being able to kill an enchantment, an artifact, or a creature, and being instant speed makes this pretty decent, right? Like you're never thrilled about spending the mana to trade down. Like we saw way back when Disembowel, which was like this for just creatures, and I think it was sorcery speed, and that card was like okay. I think the instant and the flexibility makes up for that a little bit here. And then there's going to be times where you're like mana screwed and you don't mind pitching a card just to not die to their 4-drop or whatever. So yeah, flexibility, instant, all good stuff. I think I'd probably give this somewhere in the B- range.
Yeah, I think B- is probably artifact. Yeah, it is creature anyway. Yeah, I think B- sounds good.
Yeah, also exiles, which is like a small upside too.
Sure.
Yep. Up next, we've got Light Paws, Emperor's Voice. This is 1 and a white. Legendary creature, Fox Advisor. It's a 2/2. Whenever an aura enters the battlefield under your control, if you cast it, you may search your library for an aura card with mana value less than or equal to that aura, with a different name than the aura you control. Put that card onto the battlefield, attach the Light Paws, Emperor's Voice, then shuffle.
So you don't want to go and get your removal spell.
No, you don't.
But when you cast your removal spell, you can go get an augmentation spell. So you go get you cast your removal spell and then you go get Born to Drive. That's the
I guess
the
it's
trick
something
here.
like that. Yeah,
this feels like it's gonna be way too hard to be anything more than just a 2 mana 2/2.
Little finicky.
Yeah,
a little too finicky for your tastes. Yeah,
I think so.
Doesn't it quite itch that Oswald Fiddlebender itch or scratch?
Don't you dare! Don't you dare badmouth Oswald.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty difficult for this guy. Like, I think in green white, like let's imagine green white, where there's a decent amount of auras, right, a common and uncommon, and like say you have 4 in your deck, where like let's just say you do like okay, how bad is the situation where you're talking about what you do? You cast your removal spell on something and you go draw an aura. That's pretty good, right?
It's just the question is how. Sure, like I just don't think that situation is great. That situation, I look at a card like this and I go, ooh, I'm going to pack one, pick one this, and it's going to warp my pick order in a way.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to do that.
No, it's not quite that kind of card. It's more of a, okay, I picked this up 6th.
Yeah.
Maybe it has some.
I'm in white. I'm going to take this. I have the removal spell. Maybe now I take maybe now I like Born to Drive a little more or whatever. Like, it's going to be a 2-mana 2/2 most of the time.
Yep. So what do you want to give this? Like I think just a C probably.
C minus, yeah.
Sure, I can give it a C. It's going to give you some incidental value in some decks.
Yeah. Some incidental value in some decks. I might hazard to say you should ask more of your cards, but...
Yeah, all right. What's the next, Ethan?
Lion Sash. 1 and a white for a 1/1 artifact creature equipment cat. Say for a single white, you can exile a target card from a graveyard. If it was a permanent card, you put a +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash, and it has Reconfigure for 2.
So we're like, what, 3 hours in? We get our first instance of Reconfigure here? So let's explain to chat and everybody listening what Reconfigure is for those who don't know.
Okay, so Reconfigure just effectively turns the creature into an equipment, right? So you cast it, it's a creature. You can pay the Reconfigure cost to turn it into an equipment and equip it to a creature. Then you can pay that same cost to move it to another creature as an equipment from said creature, or to turn it back into a creature from an equipment. All of these activations happen at sorcery speed.
So they all come in as creatures.
Right? They all enter as creatures, correct.
Which is nice, right? I think that's definitely what you want. And then when they've kind of outstayed their welcome, you can put them on something that has better stats, and you get to add the stats together, essentially. So, yeah, I mean, maybe that's a little piece of the puzzle here that maybe we've been missing a little bit as we're talking about these cards for maybe those out there who hadn't seen these cards. But this definitely helps a lot of the themes, like just the artifact themes, the samurai themes, just a few other things in there. I really like Reconfigure as a mechanic. I think it's really cool. I think it's really powerful. Let's talk about Lion Sash. This card also very good and very powerful.
Very, very good, yeah.
Yeah, so it starts as a 1/1. It starts small, which, that's pretty not great. And not the best 2-drop on turn 2, I would say. But mid-game, this is going to be able to grow into an equipment that gives +3/+3, +4/+4. Or is a creature that is that big as well. I think it's going to be, again, this is a card that's gotten a bit of heat for Constructed. And I think this card's going to be a little bit worse than Limited, just because in Constructed, there's like fetch lands that people are going to be exiling. This card's not going to grow quite as large. But it's still going to be quite a good card, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think this probably a B. I think.
Yeah,
just for like it's cheap, it's flexible, it scales with the game. I think a B is good for Lion Sash.
Next up, we've got another Reconfigure card, Cloudsteel Curin. This is 2 and a white for a 3-mana creature. So it's a 3/2 flyer, and it says the equipped creature has flying, and you can't lose the game, and your opponents can't win the game. Reconfigure 5. So it's a 3-mana 3/2 flyer. We were just talking about that stat line a little while ago.
It looks a lot better not attached to a vehicle, I'll tell you that.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, that's a good stat line. Yeah. The ability to reconfigure it and give something flying for 5 mana is not great. I mean, that's okay, right? I don't mind that. You don't have to ask for a lot on your 3-mana 3/2 flyer. But it is a little bit expensive. And that you can't lose the game clause, it's going to come up sometimes. It's going to come up in the sense where it's like, oh, I'm
about to lose.
I'm about to lose. My opponent doesn't have a removal spell right now. Or your opponent's like, I don't have a removal spell. I was about to kill them, and I don't have a removal spell right now. And it's like, oh, that's kind of awkward. Worth noting that like they can either kill the thing this is equipped to, or this itself, like to get rid of that, to unequip it so that you can lose the game. That's kind of interesting. So if your dream was to put this on the hexproof 8/8 to never lose the game, they can still kill this and have a chance to win the game. But overall, this is a pretty good card, even though the benefits of that flashy claws are not super impactful.
Again, this is it feels like a 90-10 split. Like
yes, yeah.
The times when the reconfigure thing is gonna come up is rare, but sometimes it is. Sometimes you're gonna be like, well, I'm about to lose the game. Let me do this and pray my opponent doesn't have removal.
Yep.
And that will sometimes let you win the game. But I think just a 3-mana 3/2 flyer with good types, I think is pretty good here. I'd give this a B-.
Yeah, I think that's about right for me.
All right, what do we got next here?
Oh, Restoration of Ganjo. This is a cool one. So this is another saga. 2 and a white, 3 mana. Chapter 1. Search your library for a basic plains and reveal it. Put it into your hand and shuffle. Okay, cool. Chapter 2. You may discard a card. When you do, return target permanent card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. The backside is a 3/4 vigilance enchantment creature that whenever it attacks or blocks, you make a 1/1 spirit token.
Whew.
That's a lot of good stuff. Okay, so 3 mana, you go get a plains, which, you know, it's sort of, what was that card from Strixhaven, the 2/1, the spirit that like came in, got a plains.
Oh yeah,
It's
Pilgrim
not
of the
quite that.
Ages, yeah.
Pilgrim of the Ages, yeah. Not quite that, but similar vibe to it. You can discard that plains the very next chapter if you want to ramp a little bit, which is kind of cool, right? Or you can discard, a 2-drop creature if you want to get that into play. That's kind of cool, right? You essentially get to put something from your hand onto the battlefield. That's a cheap thing, or something that's already been in your grave. So that's the kind of gist of chapter 2. And then the backside's nice. A 3/4 vigilance that makes a 1/1 when it attacks or blocks. Yeah, I'm in. This is a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I think this is really, really strong.
All for 3 mana. I mean, it's no wedding announcement, but it's kind of got that vibe where you play this and your opponent's like, ugh, like they're gonna get a lot of value off their 3 mana.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. Is it? This isn't. I guess it's B+.
I would give it an A-.
Yeah.
I think it's just enough.
Yeah, but you give those out like they're candy.
I think I've given an appropriate amount of A- today.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right, next up we have Kyodai Soul of Kamigawa, 3 and a white for a 3/3 legendary creature dragon spirit with flash and flying. When it enters the battlefield, another target permanent gains indestructible for as long as you control Kyodai, and you can pay Wooburg to give it +5/+5 until end of turn. Sure.
That is such a random ability on this card. Like what?
Yeah.
I guess it's to make it a 5-color commander or whatever.
Sure.
Weird. So we're just evaluating this as 3 white, 4 mana for a 3/3 flash flyer that makes something indestructible when it comes in, which is good. That's quite good. It's sort of Restoration Angel-ish, but can't re-trigger ETB effects. The real cool thing about this is, imagine just on turn 3, you go play a 3-drop. On turn 4, you pass the turn. When they attack, you make your thing indestructible and then block their creature, and then you block like a 2-power creature with this thing. That's like a pretty Christmas Landy scenario, but not so Christmas Landy. I guess I would say it's a high roller scenario. It's not gonna happen often, but that's really, really good. And just like, attacking with your 3-power creature or whatever, attacking with any creature on turn 3, flashing this in on 4 to make sure that you win the combat and get a 3/3. That's really powerful.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is very good.
Yeah, I'd probably give this like a B+.
Yeah, I think this is a B+ too.
Yep. Awesome. All right. Ooh, wow. Next one. We got a banger here. This is the Wandering Emperors. This is 2 white for a Planeswalker. It's a 3 loyalty Planeswalker. Got flash, and it says, as long as the Wandering Emperor entered the battlefield this turn, you may activate her loyalty abilities anytime you can cast an instant. The +1 here is put a +1/+1 counter on up to one target creature. It gains first strike until end of turn. -1 is create a 2/2 samurai creature soldier token with vigilance, or creature token with vigilance, not a soldier. -2, exile target tapped creature. You gain 2 life. Okay, so something to note about this card is basically in one turn cycle, you can activate these abilities twice, because you flash her in, activates, goes to your turn, activates again. That's a lot of loyalty you want to plus, or a lot of abilities, or a lot of 2/2s you want to make, whatever it is. The fact that you can is very similar to the last card, actually. You pass on turn 4, you get into combat, this comes in, she either like makes a flash block or makes your creature bigger and then first strikes it to eat something, or just exiles a creature and then you have a Planeswalker left over. There's so much modality in this card, and just like where I was maybe a little bit lower on some of the modal cards, or some of the modes are not so powerful. The modes in this card are all very powerful. And
yes.
For 4 mana, it's just so much. I think this is just gonna be one of the best cards in the set.
I agree. This is an A.
This is an A. This card's awesome.
Next up, we have Io the Dawn Sky. 3 white for a 5/4 legendary creature dragon spirit with flying and vigilance. When it dies, choose one. Either look at the top 7 cards of your library, put any number of non-land permanent cards with total mana value 4 or less from among them onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on each permanent you control that's a creature or vehicle.
Wow.
Which would you like to choose?
So another cycle, these legendary dragons that give you options when they die. Oh, so one thing that's actually kind of nice for those, maybe shied away from Crimson Val, I want to note that I think going through the set, I noticed, and maybe you've even seen this as we've talked about these rares, there is definitely fewer rares that feel like, oh my goodness, this card, like this bomb is insane. These dragons are an exception for sure. This cycle of dragons in the last Planeswalker we saw are very, very bomby. But I think overall, to quell some fears, this is not a bomb-heavy set. A lot of the rares are kind of like fiddly or build-around-y. So, that's kind of interesting. Anyways, back to AO. This card is nuts. It's a 5-mana, 5/4 Vigilance Flyer, which is just, like, very good on its own. And you can Anthem your entire team twice when it dies, or dig for creatures.
Yeah.
Like, or whatever.
Because both of these modes are just so wildly good. Right?
Yes.
But wildly good in different situations.
Yeah, you've got that board, great, make them bigger. You don't have a board, great, go find some stuff.
Yeah.
I think this is probably an A+.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
A+ seems good.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Invoke Justice. So this is 5 mana, 1 white. Yet another cycle of these. They're rares that cost 4 pips of the same mana. Sorcery. Return target permanent from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then distribute 4 +1/+1 counters among any number of creatures and or vehicles target player controls. Okay, well, I mean, again, we talked about this before when we talked about those 3-color gold cards, but similar situation here. If you can cast this card, very, very good. But kind of hard to cast the card. A white.
Quad white is really hard. The last time we saw mana requirements like this was in Throne of Eldraine, where there was the cycle of hybrid quadruple colored cards at uncommon, and you needed to either play those in a monocolored deck or a deck that was that 2-color pair, or you were like some weird split of like almost monocolored and your split was like 14/4. I would not play a card like this with less than 13 sources to cast this card. It's very mana intensive. So often I would see people playing like 10/7 or 10/8 mana bases or 11/7 mana bases and just trying to include a quad colored card from a non 2-color point or whatever. I think that you really want to make sure that you can cast this card. But if you can, it's quite good.
Yeah, I think we actually had a more recent example too with Unnatural Growth. I think that was called from Midnight Hunt, the green rare enchantment, like doubled your power and toughness, and that card definitely got put into some decks with what I would consider not enough green sources to reliably cast it, right? So I think this cycle of cards is gonna have players on 2 ends of the spectrum. Some that are like, this is never castable, never a consideration, just pass it by in the draft, and then some that are like, oh, like I can play this, is probably not that bad, and I think you should be somewhere in the middle, where it's like, yes, the requirements are very tough, but it's a really powerful effect. And, a lot of my drafts, I just start pack 1 deep in 1 color, right? I'm like, I've got 11 white cards or whatever, and white's pretty open. If I open this card in pack 2, and there's like, nothing that like, there's no like the Oblivion Ring effect or just like a generically great card, I'll probably just take this and be like, you know what? I'm already pretty heavy white. I think it's pretty reasonable I can play this card with 13 sources in my deck or 12 sources. And, it's a calculated risk, essentially.
Yeah.
So, yeah, be careful. There's going to be times where you play it, but it's just not going to happen every draft.
And we won't have the same conversation for the other 4 cards in this cycle, but I think worth talking about here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh, you don't want to have that? I kind of want to.
No, let's make these these videos an hour and a half.
What do you want to give this?
Like color requirements aside, I think this is like, this is really, really powerful. This is like an A- effect.
Yeah, I think it's best to grade this on what its power level is, right?
Yeah, so I would say A-.
I would give it an A- as well. All right, what's up next?
Farewell. 4 white for a sorcery. Choose 1 or more. Exile all artifacts. Exile all creatures. Exile all enchantments. Exile all graveyards.
Okay.
Here's a little story.
Yeah.
It's not really a story, but yesterday I saw Ben's tweet from his first, I think it was his first double feature draft, and he posted, he was like, 7 busted rares, easy trophy. And then I checked, and he had 2 by invitation onlys. And I was like, we're not calling by invitation only a busted rare? And that's not a knock against you. I also thought by invitation only looked insane too.
Yeah.
But I just think, like, I cannot tell you how many times I've had that cast against me, Path of Peril cast against me, and then I just win. It's like, okay, easy. I can rebuild my board easily.
Yeah, I feel like we have this Wrath talk every time we do set reviews where it's like, yeah, like, cheap Wraths are good, expensive Wraths not so good. Moto Wraths or Wraths to give you some benefit. You know, there's some points there. But Wraths are no longer the best busted cards in limited. You know, it's not like the close to the best cards in the set anymore. They're like somewhere in the mid-tier of rares, essentially. Right? Yeah. This one is nice because it gives you, you know, exile all your
flexibility, yeah.
Great. You know, you don't have any, super awesome. You're going to really get them sometimes. But 6 mana is a lot. So I'm going to give this like a, you know, a B-.
Yeah, I'm like C on this card.
All right, that's fair enough.
I don't like these effects anymore in limited.
Yep.
What's our last rare? Bring us home, bud.
Last rare, Brilliant Restoration. The composition of the set really just makes me laugh because we've got another white rare, but it's not in the same cycle. Anyways, so we've got 3 white for Brilliant Restoration. It's a 7 mana card. Sorcery: return all artifact and enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield.
I don't know.
I would probably just. I'm a little bit more out on this one than I was with the whatever the other, you know.
Oh,
5 mana
sure.
White card.
I mean so the Invoke Justice has like, what's the Verdurous Gear Hulk is what Invoke Justice is like.
Yes.
Right. It's gonna bring back a body and then distribute 4 counters among things for 5 mana. This, like, I don't know. So it's just hard to imagine a game state and graveyard state where this is really going to do something for you.
Yeah, I think at least for the purposes of this set review, we can just call this a def.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've talked about white cards enough. He's capping out at 75 minutes. All right. That's white.